InsightAI, powered by InsightJam.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to the InsightAI podcast with our favorite Doug Shannon, resident AI expert. Doug, thanks for being here once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always fantastic.
Well, there's always plenty to talk about, and it seems like just as fast as we can talk about it, it's already out of date. but let's talk about the speed and the velocity of things that are happening right now. So there's been an absolute record-breaking amount of news that's come out recently. Some of it is straight science fiction. I believe there's a company that is now, is it Cortical Labs, that is now building computers out of human neurons.
Yeah, so brain neurons, right? So Cortical Labs has been known to do a few things. I think they're also involved with doing the first brain neurons that actually tested out. Could they play Pong? Like, could you teach a neuron to play Pong? And that was very interesting. And then they're also the same company or lab that came across, hey, they could take blood samples, separate those blood samples down to like their core components. They use a virus of I forget the name of the virus, but a specific virus that luckily does not cross over to humans, potentially yet. But then they use that to actually separate the blood cell and then turn it into a stem cell. That stem cell can turn into pretty much any cell, at which point they created neurons, so brain neurons. And these brain neurons can sit on a silicon chip, which they've done. And they have like I believe it's like the system called CL1. And what they've created are computers using these synthetic, and then like, what I think what they call is like synthetic biological intelligence.
That's exactly what they call it.
All things like sci-fi like is happening, and they have a service. It's like wetware as a service, whereas essentially they have boxes of these systems set up that you can actually rent, like neuro time. I believe they call like what was it? It was like a you can rent like a biological neural network of these.
It's called the body in a box.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think they would change the name, but it's impressive to see how far we've come. That many people that I talked to, even in the space of AI and in the San Francisco Bay Area, we're talking like, hey, humans and computers won't be a thing for 30 something years, but this is very close to, I mean, we're using human neurons on silicon chips. I mean, are we doing it or not? Like, it's kind of crazy how fast this is moving to the point of the velocity.
Well, I mean, from wetware as a service, which is again what they're suggesting they are, wetware as a service, WAS, to humanoid robots. So, I saw Elon Musk just in a recent clip suggesting that humanoid robots, in terms of their prominence, and I believe Tesla is in the process of starting to crank out the production of humanoid robots. The idea that in 10 years' time, there'll be millions of humanoid robots roaming around, I think, our living rooms, let alone our office spaces or factory floors. But also Jensen at NVIDIA came out with a humanoid that kind of joined him on stage, a humanoid robot, and they have their own take on this action.
Yeah, I mean, the very Star Wars inspired robot, right? So even they've been working with Disney for a while on this, and it really started with Disney where they had this omnidirectional floor that gave them some ideas of how to move things. So essentially what we're going to see in the Disneylands and the Disney World parks and whatnot is people playing like their Jedi and moving things around the floor, but it's this omnidirectional floor that can be controlled, turned into, wait, how do we do this how do we make robots better, more humanoid, more appealable, like all those things. And so the robot that joined him on stage essentially, has two different computers in there, two different NVIDIA systems. It's usually like the Groot and one chipset and like that system. And it also has the Newton physics engine. So now we have physics engines, which totally aligns to the physical, also AI that NVIDIA is building towards. So, you have a bot that understands, hey, I'm moving, I'm in this space, this is the area around me, weight scale, I can push things, move things, interact with things. But then using the Groot solution there, like how they built that out, is where you can model different activities, different movements, to the point of like it just learns how to walk by itself. That's the next stage of, there's an interesting stage of learning there where we don't have to be involved. You can almost take any biped or quadruped or different kind of solution and say, hey, start just learning how you move. And then that's kind of what they've taken it as.
Well, and Boston Dynamics has been in the forefront of that for a couple of decades now, in terms of that real high functioning human movement, real powerful, real realistic. But you also see these other humanoid robots that are maybe not quite as nimble as the Boston Dynamics crew, but they're getting the job done. And I'm assuming that as these things come to the market, you'll have, the Lexuses and the Toyotas and the everything in between in terms of your own selection of what kind of robot you want to have help you with your daily tasks.
Right. I mean, it's very interesting to see the difference between some of the different robots. Like, it is different tasks. They had one that ran a marathon recently, and so that, hey, like, that's interesting. So maybe it'll help train us in the future. It'll be like a bad guy running behind us, like, oh, run away from the robot, but like it's still your robot. But or it's the fact that like even the Tesla, the Optimus versions, like you have the ability to potentially, there's a future there where, what if the new jobs being created are ones of training robots? So what if there's people in VR and headsets driving these things, working with these things? I believe even like there was like a movie just came out, like The Electric State, like on Netflix or whatever. And they kind of show a similar future. Like maybe we don't realize what we're watching, but like if you have people in VR and the ability to control an automaton or a robot in this case, teaching it or using it as a remote control, the remote control is easy to understand. Now, teaching it how to do movements, and then it records those movements and uses something like the Groot system that NVIDIA's created to trial and error that a million times over. It's going to learn how you basically teach it once how to do your dishes, and it's going to do your dishes. Same kind of thing with anything else that you want it to do. So that future is coming. And so I think just people should understand that's probably the next phase of jobs. Like, so if we talk about jobs and we look at where that comes, many people getting out of college, like you have the ability to go work at these facilities where you're training robots to do different things. Because there's going to be people that say, well, I don't want to train it. I want somebody else to train it. Like, here, come to my house. I can scan the QR code on the bot's face that shows up, so I know who's actually running this thing. So there's a validation there. And then say, hey, I want you to train this on how to do this. Let me walk you through it and you just do it. Or just watch me and figure it out, kind of thing. All those things can be done. And that's an interesting future that people need to realize is probably coming.
Well, you can see, a modern housing market where they're building houses that are incorporating robot technology as part of. It's like, we'll have a hookup for a washer and dryer and a refrigerator, and this is where the robot closet is.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, because it has to charge somewhere.
And the whole thing is built, so that it's optimized against scans and sensors and so forth. So it knows your house before you even move in, and is maybe even helping you move in.
Yeah, I mean, what if ADT and some of the security companies, they go, oh, well, let's install our module on there, and then have the ability it'll just walk around at night and do security sweeps and whatnot. We saw some of the little drones do that, but they're very loud because they have to stay floating and whatnot. Or the rolling bots that kind of do that, but then you end up stubbing your toe on a bot versus like the end of the bed or whatever at night. But a walking, scannable, like who needs maybe you don't need the guard dog anymore. So now you have the robots.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And again, with regard to velocity, it seems like there's a genuine fear. It's almost like social media at this point, where you're constantly just seeing the greatest thing that has ever happened to this company over and over and over again, to the point where, as a company, an established company, you have to start to feel like maybe you're falling behind. And it leads me to an actual piece of news that just popped, that Apple is shuffling their AI executive ranks in order to turn around the Siri product, because
it's behind. Yeah.
It is falling behind.
Yeah.
Siri is falling behind, and Apple is falling behind, and
Yeah.
they're genuinely concerned, and they're scrambling a little bit. I mean, what are some of the factors at play there? I mean, is it just a large company that isn't able to kind of maintain its startup hunger, or is this just they built it in so complete a way initially that it's just too complex to easily improve upon?
Well, I think it's a common issue. I think every enterprise is having this exact same issue. It's the issue of hype meets unknown meets miscommunication meets still siloed work effort. When you have large areas of a company, you say we're supporting this thing like Siri. You have different parts of that. Maybe it grows out. You say, oh, these control the apps of Siri. This controls the payment stuff of Siri. This controls like how people interact with it and how we gain information in it. So when you don't have those under one roof, or you have very hierarchical systems that aren't really hierarchical, because when you have leaders that aren't growing and moving as fast as the changes that are happening, and at this point it's hard in general because things are so fast that you can't disseminate the information. You're basically saying, in these large corporations, like they're still playing with newspapers. They're not even on cell phones yet. So they're saying, oh, let me pass out the newspaper. Here's the newspaper. Make sure everybody go read this, disseminate it out, make sure we're all on the same page. Oh, turn to page 3 because that's what's happening next. And you're like, this is too slow. And so this is where enterprises and anybody that has thousands of employees needs to move faster, and they're going to see the same thing. Like I would use Apple as an example of like, if they're having the issue, guess what? So are the rest of you. You're all going to have this. You're going to have missed deadlines, miscommunication, misunderstandings. And although the rising tide raises all ships, it doesn't if all those ships can't communicate. And if they're still using Morse code, flashing lights at each other, it's not really going to solve the issue. So everything needs to be in enterprise revamped to move faster. The same thing even on like the government side. Like you need things to move faster, regulations to move faster, understandings to move faster. And we don't have the right people, the right know-how, and the right, gusto to do it. So I think even the fact that I think what we've talked about before is bringing in fractional help. You don't need one leader to rule them all. Like the one ring doesn't work in this case. So if you bring fractional help to help find out what's going on in those silos, let's disseminate the information, go faster, put people on boots on the ground, get those things fixed. Or maybe there are not automation solutions, but maybe there are agent solutions here. Maybe we bring in agents that start to understand what is this process, start to normalize this. And we've talked about this with like the potentiality of the autonomous enterprise coming and bringing in autonomy into your company. But autonomy doesn't happen unless you understand your processes. And that's the change. Like it has to move.
Well, so it doesn't take. Hey, I would encourage everybody to type in things like I just did into Google. AI model is my search term, and then I click on news, and it's an announcement from Gemma 3, which is a Google open model. Then there's OpenAI's O1 Pro. Then there's NVIDIA launches open reasoning, and China is flooding the market with powerful AI models. SoftBank builds foundational AI model for telcos. Baidu jumps 10% with a new model. Roblox, Llama 4, open, Dell unveils AI PCs. This is just page 1, and this is just one day. It's like, what? How do you process this as a decision maker in terms of what to do? I mean, it almost seems like just a out of control arms race that is too confusing for the market.
It's an arms race. It's a attention race. It's when the attention is based on your stock price, that means your stakeholders and everybody that has any seat on the board says, go, 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 more shiny objects, more things. But everybody's forgetting everyone else. Like, where do the people belong? How are the enterprises enabled to drive the people, to sell to the people, and to really like get the product out there? Like, they don't even know where to go because they're looking at these foundational models, these world models that are coming out, and everybody on that first list that you mentioned, and they're saying, how do we do it? And even they don't have the answer because they're like, we're just building. And so this is like the other conversation, right? Is like, how are we understanding what's coming out? What is coming out? Are we just building stuff in the back end of labs? And as it comes out, you're just waiting for somebody to say, oh, I did a thing. So then you can say you did a thing. Like that's not, I mean, it's innovation, but really it's just the next thing you want to call a chicken or an egg. Like it comes out of an egg. You're like, well, it looks like a chicken, but it's probably not a chicken anymore. It's changed a little bit. So like, what is it? Right. And so it's analysis paralysis is what we're hitting. We're hitting that point where people go, I don't even know what to do. And then leaders are saying, I don't even know even how to act. I'm looking for use cases. I'm not getting those.
Yeah, so why don't we take a break, and when we come back, I want to dig in on this a little bit more.
Unlock better leads through Solutions Review events.
Welcome to Data Demo Day. Expert Roundtable, Solution Spotlight featuring Monte Carlo, Cohesity, Denodo, Cloudflare, High Gear, Broadcom, Next Thing.
Boost your brand with a webinar that shares comprehensive use cases, real-time product demos, and an interactive Q&A. All broadcast live to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Zoom from our Boston studio, or even on location. Fill your sales funnel with high-quality targeted leads. And contact us today by visiting solutionsreview.com/virtual events.
All right, Doug. So the question we all have, and I have this question as well, is what do we do? Do we wait for solution providers to bring pre-baked packages of AI solutions, or do we go down this kind of amorphous agentic development process where well, what do you do? I mean, if you say you wanted to get into the game and say, you know what, I want to build an agent, and I want to build an agent that does exactly what one of my people does, just as a proof point. Can I replicate what this person does? What do you do? Do you take an agent? Like, is there like a vanilla opaque blank agent that you sit on somebody's laptop in some sort of cloud virtual environment, and then it just sits there and watches and builds its own model from the keystrokes and the clicks and the copies and the pastes and what is it? How do you do it? How do you build an agent that would replicate an actual worker?
Yeah. There's a lot there, right? So starting off, like, you have to know, like, are you a small business, medium-sized business, enterprise? And then it's what are you trying to do if you want to take the approach of do somebody's full job? We all do a lot of different things, but maybe we can get like the priority list of what that looks like. And in some case, I would say, hey, you do automation first to understand, like, what do they do? Use like the automation team, kind of like center of excellence, center of enablement to say, like, what do you do? How do you do it? Kind of like Lean Six Sigma style, figure it out. Yet we don't have a lot of time, right? So we don't have the manpower, the people to really go drive that. And then
it doesn't feel like there are any solutions that are actually coming out. It just feels like model after model after model after model. And here you go. You figure it out. And so, I keep hearing about it, but it's like, I don't see something you can actually buy yet.
Yeah, there's the model side, and then there's the agent side. And so agents thrive on using models as a backend, or there's open source and other things to use too. So you can go to the model side, and some people are utilizing Gemini and all these different foundations, and they'll fine tune one and say, like, look, I can do this function. And so that's a quick and dirty, like, hey, I did a function. But then if you have agents, you can say, what kind of agents, but we'll just say agents in general, because there's so many different agents at this point, from copilots to chatbots to agentic to AI agents. But what we need to move to, and the way that innovation works, so the innovation cycle is saying we're innovating more things faster. As that happens, things get commoditized. And so really if we're waiting for anything, we're waiting for certain aspects to be commoditized that make it ease of use for everyone else to jump in. Are we there yet? Technically, there are companies out there that are doing some really amazing things. And I still believe, at least my belief is, like, multi-agent systems are the way to go. You want multi-agent systems because you're going to need agents that you can orchestrate, that can kick off to each other to get the job done. Because just like humans can work, you want to ensure that you have a main core, foundational model that is the back of all of your data in your company, or however you want to do that. And then you have agents that can kick off, like, oh, this is like your communication agent. This is what you're doing to handle like this workload of whatever it is. And sometimes those agents need to kick out to go get information, gather information, pull in other automations that you may have already had, and actually utilize that to then run reports and get information. Because literally the biggest secret that I don't know why half the people out there in Gen AI have not discovered, is the fact that why in the heck are we allowing vendors to sell us ideas on if I have 1,000 users grabbing PDFs every day and then putting that into tokenizing it and using it for like a large model, like a large foundational model, that's a high cost. But what if I take all those same PDFs and then I automate it and then bring them all, ingest them all the time? Anytime there's a new one, it's ingested, it's back in your RAG model. Then you can just like ask questions to it. There's massive savings there. Anything large, don't do tokens, automate it. Use the tokens for the finite stuff that needs to help the humans with the context. So that's all very technical stuff. But in general, to answer the question, can we do it now? There are companies out there that are doing it with multi-agent systems. There are also companies that are taking a different approach, which I found interesting because large action models are they're getting better. Rabbit R1 was not good. It proved it wasn't good. That was a little device that people try to sell people on, and it like broke and it turned into like a large hacking model. Essentially, you can use little devices, walk around with it, and hack into all kinds of networks. It's fantastic. Don't do it. But in general, it's something you should be aware of. And large action models work by actioning all these different things. And then some people are utilizing it to kind of leverage that in between automation and AI. And so there's all those aspects there. But it is coming and it is here. And that's the direction that people need to move into, is more the agents and how to drive it, not just the single use case. People look for the use case, they get it. They're going to get it, but there's also agents out there that you can sit there as the human and record what you're doing or what you want it to do. And this is where you hear about citizen developers like, hey, I am a user. I'm going to do this thing. I do it every day. Can I then record this or type it out in free text like English and say, hey, I want to do this thing, to grab a thing, to get a thing done? You can do that now. Depends on who you work with, but that's doable. And many people are vastly catching up to this point because, again, that was innovation a year ago and how it's commoditizing. And this is how that whole cycle works. But like that hockey stick curve is so fast now. This is where people get mixed up and they go, well, I don't even know what to do. Well, that goes to the very coined term of buy versus build versus partner, right? So if you're going to buy something, great. Find out what you need, work with the right people. Half the time we find out we don't have the right people in the enterprise. We need to go hire them, or we need to bring them on, or we need to go partner with someone. So utilize your vendors you trust that have shown that they're not out just to get your money. Find the ones that actually you can verify with, talk to, and they want to partner because they can probably help you find the right mix to buy versus building and putting millions of dollars into your actual foundational model you want to build yourself that you find by the time you build it, you're so far behind. Who cares? Like you're just, and then if you want to see frustrated people, do that because everybody inside your company will be frustrated going, why doesn't it work? It doesn't do what you said it was going to do. And why does it cost so much? Because I don't understand where the cost is, because there's harder ways to measure that at this point. And that's what people are coming across. So the frustration, the fear, the misunderstanding, the misconceptions of like what that looks like. And then the fact that I talk to many companies and I'm talking to leadership and they say, hey, you need to do these things. And half of them say, don't tell me, tell my employees. Please stop saying that. People's got to know.
I'm just, again, it's all happening so fast and in real time. I just literally searched for how to build an AI agent and it, one of the first results is about Oracle, who today unveiled a new feature that is called the AI Agent Studio, which is part of their Fusion Cloud application suite. Yeah. Where they had last year they had announced 50 pre-baked agents that work on the Fusion Cloud, but now they realize that companies are like want more flexibility, want to get more specific, have different custom tools that they want to employ or have the agents employ. And so now, of course, here you go. AI Agent Studio. Is that how you think it's going to go? That in the end, it's going to be, here is the no code, literally no code, not low code, not anything, no pre-block assembly business. It's really literally almost a chat process. You select a couple of things, you type in your hopes and dreams, and this thing goes off and creates an agent around that function.
Almost 2 years ago now, and I don't know if it's going to come true, and I don't believe in one part of it, but in general, like AI is the code, right? It's like developer code. Gen AI is going to be like the interface and how we interface with these different systems, because it becomes easier for humans to interface with this. And then with those out there that talk about AGI, who knows what's coming? I think there's a chance if it comes, because of everything gets, again, commoditized to a point, but AGI eventually will become the operating system. And that's when it'll kind of make sense. But how I see that really in the in-between is, again, I think on our last episode, we talked about like everyone needs to move to the point of human in the loop. And then that's what they're going to do. It's going to be humans collaborating with these, because that is the only way to gain the right alignment and the right understanding and context, and then the transparency that's needed really to drive it forward and build that trust. But once we have that trust in the companies that move on that the fastest, they're going to then transfer that over and say, oh, now we're doing human on the loop. And then that's where it drives and says, oh, well, now we're just here making sure it's all done, and then making sure a human's responsible for it, to ensure that we have our end-to-end process being done. And if something happens that's out of the norm, a human has the context and understanding, like a subject matter expert to handle that. But that's kind of how that's all going to drive. And I see that's the easiest approach, because you have to build in the trust. Because again, there's so much fear, there's so much unknown. You need to build it to where people can use it, so that we can actually then grow with it. But it will be literally just, you just talk to it at some point. At some point, you're just going to talk to it and say, hey, computer, I need this or that. I need this, and here's how I need it. It may ask some pointed questions or some query questions. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, it's exactly what I wanted. And at the same time, we're going to find out we could probably, say, oh, I want a pizza. And it just materializes out of nowhere and it gets invented, because that's the sci-fi world we live in at this point.
Well, it's interesting. I saw a perspective, and I don't remember who it was or where it came from, and I apologize to whoever it was, but their perspective was interesting in that the thought is that with all the tools that are becoming available and the power that these tools are providing, that the people that are going to succeed the fastest are going to be the people with the most amount of free time. and it will be, by and large, what they suggest, it will be the youngest generation that will come up, the students that are in high school and in elementary school, that will have access to these tools from a very, very early age, and have the free time and the inclination to want to play with them, and the blank slate creativity to take them places that established creatives may not even have the ability to envision anymore, because they, creativity, if you ask me, diminishes over time as you become more kind of stuck in your ways. But I want to follow that up, because it is mind-boggling, and I think we absolutely have to recognize the speed, again, the velocity at which video, modeling, 3D modeling, creative endeavors, music, is now being produced by AI that would be considered to be as creative as any human at the moment. And as a result, actually, I will point this one out as part of this conversation, is 400 entertainment figures recently sent a letter to protect artificial intelligence copyrights. And I think the underlying story there is protect the jobs here as well, because what's going to happen is that industry is going to get demolished in short order. And honestly, I think this is wishful thinking. And I think it's not unironic that population is asking that president for help. But the fact of the matter is that AI doesn't care about your feelings at this point. It doesn't seem, and no AI company seems to give one iota's worth of concern to copyright infringement, and as a result, these things are trampling over the existing order of creative.
Yeah, that's something. Even back when you were talking about, like, the new generations coming up and whatnot, and driving that forward. That's the good version of that. The bad version is, again, I do a lot of research. I was reading, like, they're saying in the next 3 years we could potentially start forgetting how to read. Like we're forgetting things because we're not using it, and if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So as these generations start to be raised up, if we don't start training them better, if we don't start engaging with them in critical thinking, asking why, and then finding out these answers, or really digging into, like, hey, you don't understand something? Great. Don't just search it, like, research it. Don't just ask the simple answer, because AI is going to give you a simple answer, but it's not going to give you the other side of what it didn't tell you.
But I mean, let's be honest with one another. Is there any way to stop that? I mean, how do you tell a student they need to learn all these things?
Well, no, it's just, I'm just saying, like,
when in reality they don't anymore. You have it. You have every answer you could possibly imagine in the palm of your hand at any time now with
cell phones,
Gemini, or whatever is on your phone. It's so powerful, and it's so comprehensive that there isn't
the why of it,
you need to know anymore. You don't need your brain to use it. And truth of the matter is that frees your creativity up. The less you're constrained by conventional knowledge, the more creative you'll be.
Right. I mean, Einstein wore the same clothes every day from when we were here, or the fact that, like, we don't even know directional very well because we just use GPS to go everywhere. So we are consistently cognitive offloading, and cognitive offloading is actually turning into a bad thing. Usually it's like, it's good as we, from the Stone Age all the way up, because we learn on top of each other's stuff. Human ingenuity, societies, civilizations have always, like, grown on the next one, and it's been wondrous. We now have space, and we may even be interplanetary at some point. That may be the goal of this whole thing. Yet at the same time, it's, if we're offloading, and as we offload, the same thing that many people talk about, like, do people watching this, do you know how to farm? Do you know how to grow your own food? Do you know how to, if you did have to kill an animal and you wanted to use that, do you know how to slaughter it correctly? Most people know they don't. And that's not a bad thing, but we have offloaded that. We don't need to know, because we live in a society that does stuff around us. And as we offload, direction, as we offload, wait, I don't know how to do cursive anymore, I haven't written a check in 10 years, all these things, like, where does it stop? And then, are we okay with losing certain things?
I'm okay with the cursive thing.
Yeah, well, it's pretty. It is kind of art in a way,
I'm being a little facetious, but I must say I haven't used cursive. I don't think since
maybe just as your signature, right? You're like, I use it a little bit, but really,
my signature is far from cursive at this point. It's more of
like an EKG reading, like
yeah. Well, so what do we do here with regard to protecting copyright? I mean, where does this? I mean, this doesn't seem like AI cares, and it certainly doesn't seem like these large language models care. And truth of the matter is, it's been my experience in my own engagement with generative AI, when you ask it to do things now, like create a draft proposal for something, for instance, it delivers levels of specificity, including pricing, that it can only have gotten from a proprietary and confidential proposal that somebody had left in the wrong data set. I mean, there's no question about it. It's trampling over everything, not just copyright, proprietary information, confidential information. It doesn't care.
And it's, the crazy thing is that, there's new forms of ways that these are getting information, not just because it's taking everything around us and everything you sign up for is taking your data or some kind of metadata. I've talked about it online where it's like first person data, second touch, third touch data. But if you some of these models are saying, well, we don't take first touch. Okay, so we don't take your actual name and your actual address, but we'll take like you're a male and you live in this general area. But then you take that to the third party side and you have metadata from that, and you're like, oh, I know you went to Walmart, down the road, or the Sam's Club, or whatever you did, and then you know exactly who that is if you put it all together. Like, it's not hard. And that's how AI is actually doing some of this stuff. And it's actually able to suggest things or do things to market to you. And so we're just lucky we don't have stuff like flashing up in our face at this point of like deal and buy one, get one free kind of thing. So, but marketing is definitely something on everybody's mind, especially in the company. I mean, like we talked about in the beginning here, like every time a new thing comes out, it's just in a day. This is out, this is out, this is out. And like this defeats this one. This one's faster than that one, but this one passed all the tests. And this one's smarter than humans here because of this reason. Like, okay, again, how do we not get leveraged out when the Sam Altmans of the world that are leading OpenAI and they're saying, yeah, we're computing around humans. We don't really care. That's up to the businesses to drive. Hey, enterprises, go figure it out. And the enterprises go like, what do we do? Do we hire because there's not a lot of people to hire out there? Do we go find those? How do we do this? Do we buy it? Do we build it? Do we partner? What does that look like? And that's the massive issue we're sitting at right now. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this year plays out.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating. And when we get back, and we'll take a break right now, but when we get back, we'll talk about that, the implications around that velocity and in the end, what happens to us as humans because of it.
Want more Insight Jam? Subscribe to our YouTube channel for shorts, panels, podcasts, and more. In your Shorts feed, enjoy a daily dose of best practices from tech experts and leading solution providers, while long-form panel discussions and keynotes, recorded live every quarter, go deep on important industry topics. And don't miss our collection of regular podcasts, keeping you informed on the latest trends. We're hard at work collecting the best enterprise technology information from around the globe, so subscribe to be notified of our next upload. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, Doug, let's wrap it up by getting back to the topic that most troubles me, and that is the social, societal, and psychological impact of what happens to human beings when the reality sets in that they're just no longer valued by anyone for what they can bring to the workforce, and what that means as a member of society and just a member of a community. So in a recent interview that I saw with Elon Musk, he was suggesting that in 5 to 10 years, and I think 5 is maybe probably when it really kicks in, and 10 is most definitely when it should be underway completely, that people will be hit in a massive way with employment issues, that they will just no longer have job opportunities. There just won't be job opportunities. There'll be, I think he predicts tens of millions of robots, and what he's referring to as robots are these essentially agents that are operating in a silicon digital way, maybe physical robots as well. I think you may be thinking about that as well. But what happens when people just no longer have value, when they literally can't earn? And a job, I think, is interesting. I don't think a job is all about the money you earn. I think a job is about the value that you create innately as a human being in a functioning society, right? I mean, you weren't getting paid to go out in prehistoric times and kill the
mastodon
mammal that you needed to feed but there was a value in you being able to go do that with your cohort and bring it back to the cave and cook it and eat it, and that you didn't need to be paid. That was your value, is that you were producing something of value and making the society well and healthy and functional.
Yeah.
And what happens when you can't do that anymore?
Yeah, it's hard to see or even comprehend humanity or humans having no value or less value, because humanity itself is massively valuable. up onto just being alive and being able to do things. Because as humans do anything with their hands, at the very bottom denominator, talking about like hunting and getting it done and very Stone Agey, but like utilizing your hands to craft a spear, to do a basic thing, to do art, to do science. That's the value. And every human has value, but like the value can change over time, right? Like it's like we talked about, like it used to be this, and then now it's this, and we have white collar, blue collar, and value chains differ. Now, are we going to have many more companies spin up that do many more things? Yes. So some people say, well, there's always going to be jobs, and those jobs will shift over time because, again, value changes. And they're right. Yet, do we need thousands of 80,000 or 100,000 people companies that I've worked at in the past? And do we need that many? Well, we won't, right? So if we won't, the issue there, since everybody kind of agrees on that point, you still have leaders saying, oh, well, we just need to get rid of people. It's like, don't do that. Because you still need to normalize.
Wait, slow down there. You leaders say we need to get rid of people. What is that?
Yeah. So we've seen this all, like we've seen it a lot in the news, right? So like different companies will let go of like thousands of people, or they'll say, and sometimes they'll blame AI for it and say,
business leaders.
Oh, it's because we're AI in this thing. And business leaders or CEOs that they all got their MBA from the same place and said, how do you save money and get rid of people?
Yeah.
They're literally removing human agency, and human agency is key here because it's not just personhood; it's agency over your own ability. Same way we talk about agents, and people saying like LLMs and doing agents is giving themselves agency to actually take action. Well, how do we as humans take action and take action for ourselves? So if we move at a very fast rate, say Elon's right and it hits us in 5 years, and all of a sudden, wow, I mean, because technology is moving insanely fast. We don't have to do as much. Humans are less enabled. Humans are less, quote unquote, potentially valuable, or the value proposition changes. What happens? Well, humans are going to push back because of human agency. They say, wait, we're still valuable. We can still do this. We may not know how to do this or that. We can do these other things. So then other things will scale up. And then maybe people do more wood carving and build tables and chairs, or maybe we take a artistic approach. So I recently ran into one of the data scientists that created Google Translator, right? Back, 10 years ago almost. And some of the things that we were talking about in this meeting with a bunch of different people, we kind of like we broke into groups and we're like, hey, what if that is the future? That literally the same question we just talked about here about like in 5 to 10 years and people doing less, or people just don't have the jobs because the value change moves. What do you want to do? And the most common thread that everybody really agreed on is, we want to be more human. We want to do more human things. We want to be with family. We want to go, and maybe some people are like, oh, I want to meditate more. I want to go to more travel. I want to do so we want that human experience. And it's interesting to see if we can enable that. And so I see many businesses, I see many aspects of people going to try to thrive to drive to that goal. And that's where I see the future potentially coming. So but also in that, if that 5-year hits, you're going to have people that go, no, I don't want to do any of this. I hate it. Don't talk to me. Yeah. I want my record player. Yeah.
It's going to be subtle. It's not going to be, oh, it's 5 years now, and then
it's going to happen. Yeah.
The curtain comes up. It won't be like that. It will be happening. Right. It's happening right now. Yeah. And in 5 years, you may begin to realize that, hey, you know what? I haven't been able to get a job in a year, and nobody seems to want to hire me anymore. It'll be this dawning of like, I thought I had value, but apparently I don't. And I think the human condition being what it is, at some point, there's going to be enough of that impact where politicians, who are the ultimate human,
I hope that's
club pool, to try to, they're going to naturally want to do something about this. And I think what you're going to see, if I were to play this out, and we use the Hollywood example, right? Hollywood is concerned that copyright is being stomped on, but what they're really concerned about is that these tools are going to come along and make it easy for basically kids in their basement to build full-length feature movies that are more compelling and are getting more views and are more well-received than the largest Hollywood productions, because you won't be able to tell the difference. And the creativity of that new art will be probably well received by that younger generation anyway, because it'll be in tune with their sentiments. And with regard to, the frontline worker or anybody who's going to be replaced, it's like, what do you do when all of a sudden, I don't think the AI companies are going to, again, they're capitalist entities. I don't think they're going to care. And I don't think they're going to set aside money. They're not going to set aside money that says, well, for every worker that we replace with our tool that we are now profiting from, we're going to put money aside. Nobody's going to do that. That's not how it's going to operate. And so do you try to legislate it? Because like they did in the Long Beach dock workers, right? That was one of their negotiating points. You have to legislate away robotic operations of the ports and maintain, and it sounds like that's what they got. And it sounds like that's the deal that everybody cut. But truth of the matter is that there's no way those docks can stay
profitable
like that forever. Carbon-based life forms are not going to be able to remain competitive.
And as technology evolves, right? So again, it evolves and commoditizes, but like,
so you're going to need a whole nother paradigm for how value is shared. The AI companies, they're going to create massive amounts of value and they're going to receive massive amounts of revenue from that value. Corporations are going to not hire initially, and then they're eventually just going to stop replacing the people that leave. Right. And because they don't need to, and they're going to have much more profit. And so one of the extrapolations is, well, that is going to reduce the fees that they need to pay. And so that'll be, or the cost that they need to incur to deliver their services. So services will become so inexpensive that we won't need the income that we currently require in order to get the basic services or the quite frankly, the high-end services that we currently pay for. But
we'll see.
You come back to, is this a universal basic income model? Do we move to a kind of a more of a socialist model that shares the vast wealth that the AI companies or forces them to share the vast wealth that they're creating to the people that are most impacted? I don't know. And I think it's going to be a complete shifting of political thought around that, because what we're talking about is something so profound that it's like nothing we've ever seen, and nothing that currently exists will be able to withstand it.
And a lot of people say, we just take it moment by moment. We just do it thing by thing. And that's not going to work. This moves way too fast than moment by moment. You have to be looking ahead. You have to have people now working on, how do we stop this? How do we fix this? What do we do? You have the United Kingdom saying, don't take any of our data for the mining. And they're doing a really good job at handling that. And that's cool. But here in the United States, it's, no, we just give it all. And we don't really have a voice to our data, which is odd. And there's those things that are changing, but I do see that corporate greed is still going to play a role in this too. They're not going to give up the money if they don't have to.
Europe is so it's crazy the way you have to think about this, but it strikes me that Europe is making a massive mistake by protecting data. And
it isn't, right? We'll see.
Because they're just not going to have the same power in their models to compete. You can't, and similar to the fact that they've created these regulations around energy production. And again, it's not lost on me that some of the largest critics of the current president are now very quiet about all of his talk of, massive productions of energy and unleashing all of the energy stores, because they ultimately want that, because they need it. Because in order to compete with China, who is no limit on it, they're building coal, they're building nuclear, they're building as fast as they can, because in the end, it's an energy race as much as it's anything. That Europe is destroying themselves by limiting their abilities to produce their own power and to harness their own data. And those are the trade-offs you have to make, is that you have to accept the fact that you You can't be carbon neutral anymore, and you can't be data protective anymore if you plan to survive in the modern artificial intelligence era, because it needs two things and two things alone. It needs data and it needs power. And if it doesn't have either of those, you're going to get left behind. And that's simple facts.
And really, I mean, coal's not as dirty as it used to be. Like everybody sees coal like the old days. Now there's clean coal options. They have filtration. It's not as bad as what everybody thinks. And then this is where like education is going to be key on a lot of these things too. Natural gas plants are coming up very fast. A lot of these people use it for Bitcoin mining. A lot of people use it for AI. I believe like I did some research on this recently, and like almost 3% of the entire United States grid is utilizing Bitcoin mining. So like people don't realize that much energy is going into this. So if you have Bitcoiners mining these things and doing these things at 3%, then you have AI doing it another who knows what at this point. And then everything else, are we going to start getting brownouts again? Like, what does it look like? And so power is going to have to happen. And depending on what that looks like, depending on who's playing in those areas, and there's many in the space that are doing some really amazing things, it's changing how things work.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fascinating, and I think I'm going to hold on some more questions for you for the next time we talk, because these are the kind. Unless you have some final thoughts you want to share.
Well, the one thing I was hit on is when we were talking about the dock workers again. Like they made legislation, they changed it. They're not automating like they were yet. So there's different aspects people forget. Like okay, the legislation says you don't want to automate it. Okay, you need a human kind of like controlling it and doing this stuff. Great. Well, why can't you then just give a human in a robot? Like basically you say, okay, in VR, you're going to control this crane. You're going to do the same job. And then you do follow the sun. So you still need less workers, but you can literally have a guy log into a bot, do a thing to do another thing for the next 8 hours on
again,
different scores.
You know, the human being is undefeated as well with regard to skirting legislation.
Like that's just kind of how it works. It's a catch.
They'll come up with loopholes. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I am struck by
speed, right?
The current requirements to maintain the speed, and it is powered by two things. It's powered by data and it's powered by energy, and obviously the chips that utilize both. But if you don't have, you can have all the chips in the world. If you don't have any data and you don't have any power, you don't have much of an AI program. So yeah, we'll have to stay tuned to see how it all pans out, but we will talk again very soon. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you, Doug, and we'll look forward to our next conversation.
Sounds good.
Powered by InsightJam.